The sound of hushed voices drew me to my study door that evening. Through the crack, I could see my brother Ira hunched over my mahogany desk, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in that smooth tone he reserved for his biggest deals. Yes, I can absolutely guarantee the collateral, the entire business portfolio top to bottom. My sister won't be an issue. She trusts me completely. My name is Juliana. And that was the moment I realized my brother was about to betray everything our family had built. I'd let him move into my renovated Victorian mansion 6 months ago, when he claimed he needed a temporary place to stay while his new home was being built. "Just a few months, Jules," he'd said with that winning smile that had always gotten him his way since we were kids. "Serenity and I will be out before you know it." Now I watched him shuffle through papers that didn't belong to him, in a house that wasn't his, plotting to gamble with assets he had no right to leverage. "Ira?" I pushed open the door, making him jump. "What are you doing in here?" He quickly ended the call. "Jules, just handling some paperwork. You know how it is, CEO stuff." He flashed that familiar smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I heard you talking about collateral," I said, moving closer to the desk. "What exactly are you planning to use as collateral?" "Nothing for you to worry about, just some routine business matters." He gathered the papers, sliding them into his leather portfolio. "Those documents have our company letterhead," I pressed. "As a major shareholder, I think I have a right to know." "Look, Jules," he cut me off, his tone shifting from smooth to sharp. "I've been running this company since Dad retired. I know what I'm doing. Why don't you go back to your little marketing department and let me handle the big decisions?" The condescension in his voice made my blood boil. "This is my house, Ira, and those are my documents you're going through. Our house, technically. Remember who paid for most of the renovation?" He stood, straightening his tie. "Family helps family, right? That's what you always say." As he brushed past me, I caught a glimpse of one document he hadn't managed to hide: a loan application for $20 million, with our entire family business listed as security. "Don't worry so much, little sister," he called over his shoulder. "Everything I do is for the good of the family." But standing there in my violated study, watching him disappear down the hallway, I knew one thing for certain. The time for trusting my brother was over. I stormed into Ira's office the next morning, slamming the loan documents on his desk. $20 million? Are you out of your mind?" He barely looked up from his computer. "I see you've been snooping." "Snooping? You're using our entire family business as collateral without consulting anyone." My hands were shaking. "Where's the money even going?" "Investment opportunities," he said smoothly. "Very promising ones." "What kind of investments?" "The kind that doesn't concern marketing executives." He finally met my eyes. "Even if they happen to be my sister." "Cut the condescending crap, Ira. I found the gambling receipts in your portfolio." His face darkened. "You went through my personal documents? After what I overheard?" "You're damn right I did." I leaned over his desk. $3 million lost at the Bellagio last month. $2 million at the Venetian. Does Serenity know?" "That's business," he snapped, standing up. "Sometimes you have to take risks to make money." "Risks? You're betting our family legacy on roulette tables." A knock interrupted us. Serenity poked her head in, her perfect smile faltering at the tension in the room. "Everything okay in here?" "Fine, honey," Ira said quickly. "Just a little disagreement about business strategy." I turned to her. "Serenity, did you know? Jules was just leaving." Ira cut me off, his grip painfully tight on my arm as he steered me toward the door. In the hallway, I wrenched away from him. "You can't keep this hidden forever. Watch me." His voice was ice cold. "And remember who holds the controlling shares in this company. Cross me, and you'll regret it." That night, unable to sleep, I went to the attic to dig through old family records. Maybe there was something, anything, I could use to stop him. In a dusty corner, behind boxes of Christmas decorations, I found an ancient leather ledger I'd never seen before. Inside were handwritten entries dating back to the company's founding, but what caught my eye was a letter tucked between the pages, written in my grandmother Rosalind's distinctive handwriting. "My dearest granddaughter," it began, "if you're reading this, you've discovered what your grandfather tried to hide. The truth about who really started this company." My phone buzzed. A text from Samir, our family lawyer, found something interesting in the original incorporation documents. Need to meet ASAP. Looking back at the letter in my trembling hands, I realized this was just the beginning. Ira thought he held all the cards, but he had no idea what was coming. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I was about to become its willing assistant. "Your grandmother wasn't just involved in the company," Samir said, spreading old documents across his office desk. "She was the driving force behind it." I leaned forward, examining a faded black and white photograph. There stood my grandmother Rosalind, much younger but unmistakable, standing proudly in front of an empty lot with a shovel in her hands. The date stamp read 1962, but grandfather always said, "Your grandfather took the credit." A voice came from the doorway. Peyton, our retired business partner, walked in using his cane. "Sorry to interrupt. When Samir called, I knew I had to come." "Peyton, you knew about this?" He settled into a chair beside me. "Your grandmother was brilliant, but it was a different time. No bank would give a woman a business loan back then. So your grandfather became the face of the company." Samir pulled out more documents. "Look at these original contracts. The signature might say Cunningham Enterprises, but the handwriting on all the notes, the business plans, the strategies, it's all Rosalind's." "There's more," Peyton added. "She developed the manufacturing process everyone still uses today. Your grandfather was just a salesman, a good one, but still." My hands trembled as I picked up another photograph. This one showed Rosalind in what looked like a makeshift laboratory, surrounded by technical drawings. "Why didn't she ever tell me?" "Your father and Ira," Peyton sighed. "They were so proud of their patriarch's legacy. She didn't want to hurt them, but she did leave breadcrumbs." He nodded at the letter in my hand. "For the right person to find." "The shareholder agreement," Samir interjected, pulling out a thick document. "There's a clause here that's never been invoked. Any direct descendant of the original founder can claim executive control with board approval." "But Ira's also her descendant," I pointed out. "Yes, but you have something he doesn't." Samir smiled. "The truth, and proof that the founder wasn't who everyone thinks it was." My phone buzzed. A text from Tiffany, one of our board members. "Need to talk. Have interesting information about company history." "Looks like you're not the only one digging," Peyton observed. I gathered the documents, my mind racing. "I need copies of everything." "And Peyton, would you be willing to testify about what you saw?" He gripped my hand firmly. "Your grandmother was my friend. It's time her story was told." As I left Samir's office, another photo caught my eye. In it, Rosalind stood at a podium, wearing a locket I remembered from my childhood. The same locket that now sat in my grandmother's jewelry box, waiting to reveal its secrets. The pieces were falling into place. Now I just needed to play them right. "I've been researching women pioneers in business," Tiffany said, stirring her coffee at our discreet meeting spot across town. "Your grandmother's name kept coming up in old industry journals, but always in the footnotes, never the headlines." "What exactly did you find?" She pulled out her tablet, showing me scanned articles from the 1960s, patent applications, technical papers, even a few interviews where male executives mentioned getting advice from her. She was the shadow force behind every major company innovation for 20 years. Why are you interested in this? I asked carefully. Tiffany's eyes narrowed. Because your brother's been making some questionable decisions lately. The board's nervous. We need to know if there are alternatives, like a different CEO, like someone who understands the company's true heritage. She leaned forward. The shareholder meeting is in 2 weeks. If you have something to present, that would be the time. My phone buzzed. An anonymous email. Back off or the company won't be the only thing you lose. Tiffany read it over my shoulder. Looks like someone's nervous. You must be onto something big. Big enough to get threatened, apparently. I showed her Rosalind's letter and the photos. I need your help. The board trusts you. Count me in. She pulled out her business card, scribbling a number on the back. My private line. Call anytime. And Juliana? Her expression hardened. Watch your back. Later that afternoon, I was reviewing the documents when Serenity burst into my office, mascara streaking her cheeks. Jules, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I just found out about the gambling, the loans, everything. I guided her to a chair. How did you discover? Credit card statements, so many casino charges. She wiped her eyes. But that's not the worst part. I overheard him on the phone. He's planning to sell the manufacturing division, the one your grandmother. Oh, God. She covered her mouth. What about my grandmother? He said something about erasing the old woman's fingerprints from the company once and for all. I didn't understand what he meant, but he sounded so cold. After Serenity left, I locked my office door and called Samir. How quickly can we prepare a full presentation for the board? 2 weeks if we push it. Make it 10 days. And Samir, we need to visit my grandmother, now. As I gathered my things, another anonymous email arrived. Final warning, some family secrets should stay buried. They thought they could scare me into silence, but they didn't understand. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every woman whose story had been erased from history, starting with my grandmother's. Someone's been in my office, I told Samir over the phone, surveying the subtle disarray. Files slightly out of place, desk drawer not quite closed. They're looking for the documents. Keep everything with you, he replied. Don't leave anything at the office or your house. My house? I stopped cold. Ira still has a key. I rushed home to find Ira in my study, rifling through drawers. Looking for something? I asked from the doorway. He didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. Just some old family photos. Serenity's putting together a company anniversary presentation. Funny, because Serenity was just crying in my office about your gambling debts. His face darkened. You turned my own wife against me? You did that yourself. I stepped closer. Just like you're about to lose everything else. Is that a threat? He laughed, but I caught the nervous edge in his voice. You forget who taught you everything you know about business. No, that was grandmother. You just took the credit like grandfather did. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. And soon, everyone else will too. His hand shot out, gripping my arm. Listen carefully, little sister. If you pursue this, I'll make sure you regret it. Remember who holds the power here. Not for long. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. It was Tiffany holding a stack of papers. Oh, good. You're both here, she said, walking in. Ira, the board wants to discuss these unusual transactions we've found. 20 million in unsecured loans, casino withdrawals from company accounts. Ira released my arm. I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. Tiffany smiled coldly. We've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Don't be late. After they left, I received a text from Serenity. Found something in Ira's safe. Meeting notes from 1962. Coming over now. 10 minutes later, she handed me a yellowed envelope. He kept saying these were his insurance policy. I don't know what that means, but inside was a handwritten confession from my grandfather, acknowledging Rosalind as the true founder and innovator behind the company. The date was just weeks before his death. My phone rang. It was Samir. Juliana, your grandmother's ready to talk. She says it's time everyone knew the truth. Looking at the confession in my hands, I felt a surge of determination. The shareholder meeting was in 3 days. Ira thought he was protecting his legacy, but he had no idea he was about to lose it all to the very person he'd underestimated his entire life. Grandmother Rosalind sat in her favorite armchair, the afternoon sun highlighting the silver in her hair. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened an old jewelry box. I've waited so long for someone to ask the right questions, she said, pulling out a worn leather journal. Your grandfather wasn't a bad man, Juliana. He was just a product of his time. That doesn't make it right, I said, sitting at her feet like I used to as a child. No, it doesn't. She opened the journal. I developed the manufacturing process in our garage. Your grandfather said no one would buy from a woman, so he presented it as his own. One compromise led to another until he took everything, I finished. Not everything. She unclasped the locket from her neck, the same one from the old photographs. Inside was a tiny key. In my basement, there's a safe behind the painting of the factory. Everything you need is there. Patents, contracts, my original business plan. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because you needed to find it yourself. She gripped my hand. Your brother is just like your grandfather, charming, ambitious, but willing to sacrifice others for his own gain. You're different. You see people, not just profits. A knock at the door interrupted us. It was Peyton leaning on his cane. Rosalind, he smiled, still beautiful as ever. Still a shameless flirt, she shot back, but her eyes sparkled. Tell her, Peyton. Tell her what you saw. I was there the day your grandmother invented the process that made this company millions, he said, settling into a chair. I watched your grandfather take credit at the press conference. I kept quiet because she asked me to. Not anymore, Rosalind declared. Peyton, will you testify at the shareholder meeting? Try to stop me. We spent hours going through the safe's contents, documented proof of every innovation, every stolen credit, every silent contribution. But it was a recent document that made my blood run cold. He's planning to sell my patents? Rosalind's voice shook with rage. To dismantle everything I built? Not if I can help it, I promised, fastening her locket around my own neck. The meeting's tomorrow. Are you ready to tell your story? More than ready. She squared her shoulders, suddenly looking decades younger. It's time to show them what the women in this family are really made of. As we left, she pressed a final envelope into my hands. Your grandfather's last gift to me, his confession. Use it wisely. The pieces were in place. Tomorrow would change everything. I touched the locket, feeling its weight against my chest, the weight of 3 generations of women's dreams, finally ready to be heard. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in, Grandmother Rosalind on one arm and Peyton on the other. Ira's smug smile faltered when he saw them. What is this? He demanded. This is a shareholders meeting, not a family reunion. Oh, but it's both, Tiffany said from her seat, especially given what we're about to discuss. I connected my laptop to the projector. The first image appeared, Rosalind at the company's groundbreaking ceremony. Let me tell you a story, I began, about a brilliant woman who built an empire only to have it stolen from her. This is ridiculous, Ira interrupted. We're here to discuss current business matters. Like the $20 million you borrowed against company assets? Serenity's voice rang out. Or the gambling debts. Ira's face reddened. That's private. Nothing's private when you risk company assets. Tiffany cut in. Continue, Juliana. I displayed the patents, the contracts, the grandfather's confession. With each revelation, the board members leaned forward, whispers growing louder. And now, I said, the woman who actually built this company would like to speak. Rosalind stood, her voice clear and strong. 60 years ago, I developed the process that made this company what it is today. I stayed silent while my husband took credit. I watched my grandson nearly destroy it all. I won't stay silent anymore. Peyton testified next, describing everything he'd witnessed. Then Serenity presented the casino receipts and loan documents. This is all very touching, Ira sneered, but I still hold controlling shares. Actually, Samir interrupted, standing. According to the original shareholder agreement, any direct descendant of the founder can claim executive control with board approval, and since the true founder was Rosalind, all in favor of removing Ira and installing Juliana as CEO? Tiffany asked. Hands rose around the table. Ira jumped up, knocking over his chair. You can't do this. I built this company. No, you didn't, I said quietly. You just took credit, like grandfather did. That ends today. All opposed? Tiffany asked. Silence. Motion carries. Congratulations, Juliana. Ira stormed toward the door, then turned back. You'll regret this, little sister. No, Rosalind called after him. The only regret here is that I didn't stop this pattern sooner. As the board members congratulated me, I caught Serenity's eye. She nodded slightly, tears in her eyes, before following her husband out. Well done, Tiffany whispered. Now the real work begins. I touched the locket at my neck, feeling its weight, no longer a burden, but a reminder of the legacy I would now carry forward. The Rosalind Cunningham Innovation Center, I announced, unveiling the plaque on our newly renovated research facility. Applause erupted from the crowd of employees and press. Grandmother stood beside me, beaming with pride. Her patents, finally bearing her name, lined the entrance hall. Each one told a story of determination, of brilliance pushed into shadows but never extinguished. And this, I continued, is our new Women in Innovation Scholarship Program, providing funding and mentorship to female entrepreneurs. After the ceremony, Serenity approached me. She looked different, stronger, more confident in her new role as head of our charitable foundation. Ira checked into rehab yesterday, she said quietly. The gambling addiction therapy seems to be helping. Good, I nodded. The trust fund I set up for him will keep paying out as long as he stays clean. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. We're still family. Tiffany joined us, tablet in hand. Stock price is up 30% since the leadership change. Turns out transparency and ethical management are good for business. A commotion at the entrance drew our attention. Ira stood there, looking thinner, humbler. Jewel, he said, walking over. Can we talk? In my office, grandmother's old office, he struggled to meet my eyes. I've been doing a lot of thinking in rehab, he began. About power, about legacy, about how I treated you and grandmother. And? And I was wrong. All of it. The loans, the gambling, taking credit for others' work. I became everything I claimed to hate. Like grandfather, I said softly. Worse, at least he built something, even if it wasn't his idea. I just destroyed. He pulled out an envelope. This is my resignation from the board. My shares are being transferred to the Women's Innovation Fund. Before I could respond, grandmother walked in. Ira fell silent. I heard everything, she said. Come here, grandson. Their embrace was awkward but genuine. When they separated, both had tears in their eyes. We can't change the past, grandmother said. touching her old locket now hanging around my neck, but we can choose how we move forward. Looking around the office, at the patents on the wall, the photo of 3 generations of our family at the center's opening, the future we were building, I finally understood. This wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about transformation, about breaking cycles of silence and erasure. Welcome home, I told Ira. There's plenty of work to do if you're willing to earn your place. He nodded, and for the first time in years, his smile reached his eyes. I'd like that, and this time, I'll make sure credit goes where it belongs. Sometimes karma doesn't just balance the scales, it opens the door to something better than revenge, redemption.